Let's go to Lukhona Mnguni, anchor of On the Spot here on eNCA. Mnguni, evening. Mtembu, how are you? And what do you think of what just happened?
Good evening, JJ, Prof. Boyson and Sally. It's quite an interesting reshuffle in a number of ways, because I suppose some people were thinking all the detractors of the president would be ousted out, and they're seemingly surprised that, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma has made it back into the presidency this time around under a different portfolio. I did tell our colleague Gareth Edwards this morning that my reading of the situation is that there's far greater rapport between NDZ and the president, and therefore I didn't foresee her leaving, the cabinet. But I do think that in actual fact, there is a person who has, in my view, been overlooked in the ANC for a very long time for a ministerial post, and that is Cindy Chikunga, who's now the Minister of Transport. Yes. You might remember, JJ, that she was a very fierce portfolio committee chairperson of police at some point in the National Assembly, and really showcased the kind of political leadership that is needed to hold to account even your peers. Of course, there are political casualties as a result of the build-up to the NASREC 2.0, which was the 2022 conference. And I see someone who is seemingly escaping scrutiny in terms of having now been dismissed as a deputy minister is Phumulo Masualle, who stood against Fikile Mbalula for the position of Secretary General in the ANC. So there are certainly interesting things. I think Noxolo Kivit as Minister of Public Service and Administration is extremely interesting. I don't think that she had the best of 10 years as Premier of the Eastern Cape. But of course, again, it might be that there are certain things being solved for within the African National Congress's political dynamics. Quite surprising, of course, again, Sihlezi Kalala being given such a powerful ministry. But in the corridors of the ANC, there has always been understanding that that Ministry of Public Works needs to come back to a minister who comes from the ANC, just because of its strategic advantage. And for different people, it is strategic for different reasons. Some people look at the amount of resources that are inherent there and the asset registry that is under that ministry and its strategic importance, and of course, particularly for disbursement of procurement contracts, and especially for fundraising towards 2024, and the availability of patronage that is possible within that ministry.
Lukhona, can you comment on the deputy GS of the ANC going into another new ministry of monitoring and evaluation, and whether you buy what the General Secretary Fikile Mbalula just said about this being necessary to, in a sense, supervise what happens in government and to close the gap between what gets decided at Luthuli House and what gets implemented in the union buildings. Your comment?
It's an interesting move. There was a big debate during NASREC last year as to whether or not the second DSG of the ANC would be strategic as being deployed as chief whip in the National Assembly to sort of, marshal the deployees of the ANC to the National Assembly. I suppose she has great familiarity with the presidency because she was advisor to the president on international relations. But it's interesting that, we are seeing a re-establishment of this Ministry of Monitoring and Evaluation, because that department now fell under the ministry in the presidency, short of an explanation from the president. And unfortunately, this is the crisis of what we have come to accept under President Ramaphosa, a one-directional communicating president who cannot be questioned about the decisions that he's making as to why did he see fit for this ministry to be killed and put under, a ministry in the department under a ministry in the presidency, with along other departments and entities like your Statistics South Africa and so on. I think it is just about accommodating another comrade, but it also creates this fiction of a powerful minister because she is now part of the top 7. The conceptualization of the second Deputy Secretary General in the ANC was about having a political official who can monitor and evaluate the performance of deployees to government from a strategic position of Luthuli House, now deployed to government. The problem of that department is partly its location and the powers that are allocated to it. My view, and I've discussed this with people at the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation, and some of them tend to agree. My view is that that department should be a statutory department that has an entire act that governs how it is and gives itself powers, and it's actually a department that is more responsible in terms of its reporting to Parliament rather than to the President, because effectively the President is vested with the powers of monitoring and evaluating his own government, and I do not think that the creation of a ministry strengthens his role or in doing that exercise. But certainly that she's part of the top 7 gives her some political clout, because some people have felt that, you know, the department is undermined by fellow departments insofar as, you know, them answering to it. But again, I still think, JJ, we have a long way to go, and we need to have a very thorough discussion about the very architecture of our bureaucracy in South Africa.
We're going to have to leave it there. Mthembu, thank you so much. Encca of On the Spot here on eNCA.
Such a deep dive.